Hi, we're Individual Solutions 2, and our project is about motivators for recycling. So first of all, plastics are harmful for the environment. 8% of the world's oil production goes towards producing plastics. And plastics take about 1,000 years for them to decompose, and this is because they're composed of carbon-to-carbon bonds that make it hard for natural processes to break them down because they are such a strong bond. So in the decomposition process, this leaches harmful chemicals into the soil and into the water. Plastics contain chemicals such as BPA and DEHP, and those are endocrine disruptors. Specifically, these endocrine disruptors contribute to excess adipose tissue or fat storage, especially around the midsection, reproductive failure in men and women, and it can contribute to insulin resistance. And as of 2011, the amount of energy contained within plastics, specifically in landfills, was equivalent to 36.7 million tons of coal, 139 million barrels of oil, or 783 billion cubic feet of natural gas.
Recycling is connected to the food, energy, and water nexus. Using recycled materials rather than manufacturing products from new materials saves both energy and water. As stated before, 8% of the world's oil production goes towards producing plastics. But if plastic bottles recycling could save 50 to 60% of energy needed to make new ones. Paper recycling can also save up to 70% of the energy needed to create paper from new timber. And 60% of water is saved when using recycled paper in manufacturing, and recycled steel saves 40% of water. The reasons why people don't recycle is because people do not know how to take action. According to a survey, 34% of people do not know how they can take action to confront environmental issues despite having a desire to do so. People also don't know what and where they can recycle. They don't know the benefits of the environment that recycling has, and they feel like they can't make a difference in the environment by recycling. And recycling is also inconvenient and time-consuming to many people because they have to take their recyclables to a recycling station.
So in order to make recycling a reality, we have to motivate people to do so. The best ways that we can motivate people to recycle are by making it more convenient, by educating them on how to recycle and what they can recycle and where they can recycle, and providing rewards and incentives for people recycling. So first is convenience. So when curbside recycling was implemented nationwide, it increased participation by 48.6%. So in this specific study, the families were provided bins, which has been proven to be more effective, and they were supplied open-top 18-gallon recycling bins. So while participation in recycling increased by that 48.6%, the open bin recycling caused litter because of those lightweight materials flying out of the open bins. Per 1,000 household, 3.74 tons of litter were generated per year. And then the cost of this litter is 17 to 79 cents per unit, which adds up when there's a lot of plastic that needs to be cleared from the area. And then education. So we can educate students about the importance of recycling in order to make them more inclined to recycle. So LPS is implementing new district standards that align with next generation science standards coming this spring of 2018. In other schools that were aligned with these standards, students showed an increased scientific literacy, critical thinking skills, and a likelihood that they would take action in individual solutions, specifically water saving and recycling. Education dispels misconceptions, and it reinforces that the actions that we take actually do make a difference. And then further, the curriculum highlights the human impacts on systems, cause and effect relationships, and waste management, among many other topics. So adults don't attend school, so we need to come up with a solution on how we can educate them also. So typically adults enjoy receiving information from a personal contact, so this could be a peer or a friend, and they would also benefit most from hearing about how recycling benefits the environment so they can understand why it's important. People are hesitant to recycle in older age groups because they think there's perceived obstacles. So be that a cost of recycling, or they don't know where they can recycle. They're not inclined to find out more information if it's not readily available to them. and because of a lack of education. So in a study done by the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville, they asked the population, does your city have a recycling program? And 54% of respondents said no or I don't know. And Fayetteville does have a recycling program. So clearly there's a disconnect on how we're educating people on how to recycle, and so this is something that we would need to fix. So in our own town, Lincoln, there are several things that we can recycle. We'll just touch on a few of them in this presentation. But newspapers are one of them, cardboard, aluminum and tin, making sure that there's no food residue left on them. Glass bottles and jars can be recycled infinitely. Plastic 1 through 5 containers, and residential mixed paper can also be recycled. Things that cannot be recycled are mirrors, light bulbs, and packing material.
Another way to motivate people to recycle is by giving recycling incentives. An organization already in place that provides recycling rewards is called Recyclables. Through their website, you can earn points for recycling, but only if your city hauler is partnered with Recyclables. And the city haulers they'll collect your recyclables and they will weigh them, and they will give you points for how much recyclables you have. You can also go on their website and educate yourself about living sustainably by reading articles, and they'll award you points for reading those articles, and then you can redeem your points for rewards such as coupons or gift certificates. Let's talk about the effectiveness of recycling incentives. In England, authorities implemented recycling, meaning the city haulers began collecting the recyclables and weighing them and awarding points, and they saw a 12.5% increase in recycling. In Arkansas, a community began doing that as well, and they saw a 65% increase in recycling in 1 year. And then in Philadelphia, a suburb implemented Recyclables, and they saw a 155% increase in recycling from the same week the previous year. So although Recyclables seems to be effective, it doesn't actually solve the recycling problem. That's because Recyclables rewards people to produce more recyclable waste rather than taking steps to reduce the waste in the first place. So because people are being rewarded to recycle plastic bottles, that means they're going to go buy more plastic bottles, which means that the producers are going to create more plastic bottles, which we don't want because that's harmful to the environment. So essentially, rewarding people for recycling defeats the whole purpose of recycling in the first place, which the point of recycling has to do with understanding the purpose of reducing waste in a finite world. So a few of the stakeholders in our recycling dilemma are the recycling companies themselves. That's because they'll make higher profits if more people recycle, so clearly they're supporting recycling. There's also the families and homes who recycle. Some families need to pay for their curbside recycling, or they have to inconvenience themselves by taking their recyclables to a recycling center. So they might oppose recycling just because they have to go out of their way to do so. Other families might be for it just because they have a feeling that they want to help the environment. Industries who use plastic in general, such as water bottle industries, are also another stakeholder because the cost of recycled plastic is lower than the cost of getting new plastic, so they'll be saving money by using recycled plastic, so they're definitely for recycling. The water supply companies are also another stakeholder because plastic chemicals can pollute water, so they want you to recycle so that the chemicals don't get in the water. The wildlife and marine life, because depending on where the plastic ends up, if it's disposed of improperly, it can harm the wildlife, so they're supporting recycling. And then the plastic production companies themselves, they'll lose money if you recycle because they won't be producing as much plastic, so they might oppose recycling. Our group environmental ethic is that the environment does not solely exist for human benefit, and all species should be given an equal opportunity to prosper. We must keep our environment clean so that other species are not greatly impacted by our actions. However, it is not realistic for everyone to sacrifice convenience in every single instance to preserve the environment. It is important that we preserve wildlife and natural habitats, but also improve human technology to decrease overall impact. So we believe that we need to protect our environment and keep it clean, but also not sacrifice our own convenience and time. A decision-making tool that we made is the justice test. This one asks, is it a fair distribution of benefits and burdens? So inequality can stem from increased effort and need from some parties and stakeholders, and some stakeholders may have to contribute more than others. The application to our product is that poor people may have to deal with toxic soil and water more heavily, and there could be more effort from some stakeholders if curbside recycling isn't offered at a low cost in their location.
So our recommendation is that education is the best medicine to fixing this recycling problem. We also need to make it more convenient for people to recycle. So we would suggest putting recycle depots at places that people are already going to visit. So be that a grocery store or their schools, because this is a place where they can easily access recycling. And then we would also suggest curbside recycling, but only in the instance that recycle bins have lids, so that that plastic isn't flying out and polluting the planet. So we learned the harmful effects of chemicals on plastics and how that affects the soil and our water supply and our own endocrine functions. We also learned about the things that can be recycled, that convenience is key when convincing people to recycle, and that we must educate the public on what can be recycled to convince them to recycle. So that's the end of our presentation. Thank you for listening.